Okay, I am here with Sally, who is on the phone with me, who came across or is bringing us a current question from online from someone that has a question. It seems to be dealing with a difficult coworker. What exactly was the question posed?
I have the viewer is asking about someone who is a manager in management position who seems to be controlling other coworkers by using manipulation and um, possibly a little mm, bullying in order to get his way um, in a work environment. What would you do in that kind of situation in order to manage the hurt feelings that some people might get from this type of behavior from a boss?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances that can go into a working environment. For example, what kinds of bullying, and bullying, that's conjures a lot of different things in people's psyche. It's like, how far is that going? And then there's the interpretation of the person themselves, because some people are very sensitive, and it's personalities and dynamics that we're dealing with here. And so those nuances can be a little bit hard to deal with when you're just posing a question. So let's just be general and deal with some fundamental, foundational aspects of it. Keeping in perspective that is, as long as simplification is the best way to deal with this. You have to remind yourself and keep this as simple as possible in your psyche. So if I'm going to work and I'm looking at a certain boss of mine or a manager of mine, and they're dealing with other people as well as me in a way that I think is bullying, or kind of like they're being an asshole, or I don't like the way they're dealing with things, I have to simplify this as much as possible, as long as I'm going to continue to work there. So if I'm going to make the decision to continue to work there because it's conveniently located, or whatever reasons, I don't want to relocate or transfer or anything like that, making peace with where I'm at is what I'm going to have to do. So you if there's interactive between the management, or let's just say it's a manager, a boss, dealing with other people there, co-workers, in a dogmatic negative fashion, I have to stop looking at that. I have to stop talking about it. I have to stop looking at it and focusing on how they might be making that other person feel, or the methodology. Because if I'm already irritated about my own and the way my boss is dealing with me, looking at the way they're dealing with other people is just going to agitate it even more. So you have to make a decision. Do I can go to work and find things that are going to agitate me, and I know they're there to find, or I can go there and know there are going to be things that can agitate me, and there's also going to be things that won't agitate me. So simplify your experience by deciding in advance that I'm going to go to do my job, and whatever the boss does or doesn't do with the other co-workers is not anything I'm going to focus on. I'm not in the conversation. I don't want to know about the scenarios going on as much as possible, and deal as simplified as possible with my own relationship with the boss. Now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way as much as possible, then I'm just dealing with my own, what I can control. So what I can control is my own relationship with the boss and what I want to choose to focus on about it. Now, when you're dealing with the nuances of an asshole, or a boss, or somebody that you're subjecting yourself to, you you can personalize it. You can take it personally. You can let it irritate you. You can magnify that. You can get yourself worked up about it, or you can say, this has nothing to do with me. And if you have to go ahead and do, you're like, okay, let's say your boss wants you to do some things that I think that's stupid. Why would you have me go do this twice when doing it once was sufficient? So you're going to butt heads with the methodology of a boss and the way that they want things done. And if you don't like it and they're the type of boss where they get off on power play, or they're not receptive to your suggestion, I call it Barney Fife syndrome, which is really, I understand, it's very irritating. A lot of people get into management positions because they do want to exercise power and they want to flaunt it and they want to push people around and they want to make themselves feel better than somebody else. And that's why they pick the management position. It's very common in management positions to see those characteristics. When you recognize that somebody is being like all kinds of rationale or lack of about doing things, wanting you to do things in a way that doesn't make sense to you, and they're not open for your ideas, then you have to look at it like, you know how it is when you deal with a child or you deal with somebody that's got a mental illness. You don't deal with them, you don't put it in the same place mentally as you do someone that you think of as a mate in a relationship or a friend that you feel like you're kind of on even grounds and relativity, you know what I'm saying? You put it in a completely, you don't expect the same things out of a child. You don't expect the same things out of someone with mild retardation, you know? And I don't mean it in a way to put that in your psyche so you can look down upon them. I mean, you have to wrap your head around it in a way where you take into consideration who you're dealing with and recognize that they have issues that have nothing to do with you, and this is who you're dealing with. So you wouldn't even be irritated about a child because they're acting childish. You wouldn't look at a retarded person like a healthy person making retarded decisions. You say, oh, but I understand. And okay, you need me to do this way. And I understand that I can't explain to you why that doesn't make sense to me. You're not open to there are some bosses that are open to your suggestions, and there are some bosses that are not. And it doesn't sound like you're dealing with one that's open. And so you got very simple choices. You either leave, you decide what it's worth to you. And if you're still there, there's a reason why you feel it's still worth it to you. You always got to remind yourself that you might have made a decision to stay there a year ago, but now you know what? You got a year's worth under your belt of irritation, and maybe it's not so worth it to you anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? So leave yourself open to change. Like just because I said I would a year ago doesn't mean I'm good the next year and I got a right to change my mind. Never forget you have the ability to reevaluate something and make a different choice now. You're never stuck in that way. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I evaluated this before and I concluded based upon these things that I'm just going to stay where I'm at. And maybe that was good last year. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, just because you reevaluate it again, is it still worth it to you? And acknowledge that if it is still worth it to you, then you got to wrap your head around the fact that it is your choice. You don't put yourself in a war zone and complain about the bullets, right? So you know what you're dealing with. And if it helps you to look at them in a dogmatic fashion, like you would a retarded person or a child, then go ahead and do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead and wrap your head around it like that. I understand. I understand. And slow down. You know what I'm saying? When you're dealing with people that irritate you and rub you the wrong way, you can feel in you those gears twisting. You can feel when you went in feeling good and then something goes a certain way and you start to flip inside. You start to flip that switch of, you know what? And then you keep going. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, because you're the one in charge of your pivotability. And you can either keep going and work yourself up into your undies, get into a twist, or you can slow down and say, you know what? I'm starting to go. I'm starting to go there, and let me not. Breathe. Remind yourself that I'm choosing to be here. And if he needs, you know what? You look at your boss and say, if he needs me to do this 5 times, I'm going to do it 5 times. And I'm going to say, what else do you need me to do, baby? What else you need me to do? Because you're ill. And you know what? I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid. You want me to do this 5 times and get paid because you think that that's the effective way to do it? I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to What else you need? You're there to stroke their ego. Your job description just changed. You ain't there to just, you're not there to just do your job that you thought anymore. Now your job includes being an on-call psychologist, you know, or being an on-call ego stroker. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that's a really good point to wrap your head around it differently. It's like, you know what? Look at it like this. A person that is acting a certain way, power tripping, or think they're right and there's no way to improve anything, there's something about them that they need to feel that way. Yeah? They apparently really need to feel like there's no better way to do it. Or maybe they really need to feel like they're that important where they're better than you. It can even be mental warfare. It ain't even about that you could show them something that's clearly a better idea or way of doing something, and just because they're broken mentally and emotionally, they're just going to get their kicks out of making you do it again, or they're going to fire you for some bullshit. Yeah? All right. Okay, so baby, so then you're looking at somebody that somewhere inside them, they need you to do that for them. And if it's not that demeaning, we're not talking about somebody says, kiss my shoes. You know what I mean? But if it's something like, doing your job in a redundant fashion, or, restocking whatever it is, okay? It's your job description changed, and I'm just saying, for me personally, it helps me to look at people. I'll give you an example. There are sometimes I deal with people that need to brag a lot. They need to gloat a lot about where they've been and what they've been doing, and it's not because, God, I'm really proud of myself, and I've been through some great accomplishments. They're not just feeling healthy self-esteem. They're actually throwing it around like you ain't shit and they are. You know what I mean? Well, I know who I am, so when they do that, I recognize why they're doing it, and nothing they do can make me feel like shit about me because I'm grounded already. So when somebody starts doing that to me, I can identify it very quickly as something that they need to say because they don't feel good enough. And so then I look at it like, oh, you're right, baby. I'm gonna give that to you. You're right, man. You've accomplished a lot. So like in this case with this boss, I would be like, oh, look, he needs me to do this 5,000 times. Oh, what else you need me to do? Because you're broken. You're broken. My service to you is no longer as an employee. It's on behalf of mankind to love you while you learn to love yourself. My cup runneth over. First of all, I identify that something's going on with you mentally and emotionally that has nothing to do with me. And I can either decide to make that personal and get my undies in a twist, or I can remind myself that you don't define me, but clearly you're broken in some way and you need to overcompensate by making people jump through all of these weird hoops and kind of borderline mentally abuse people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Well,
I do.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that this particular, question is coming from someone that easily can do that. But let's face it, reach for the moon, fall among the stars, you see. At least it's a blueprint that you can kind of reach toward wrapping your head around. One thing's for sure, however you've been looking at it, you ain't been having too good of a time with it. So you're asking me, I'm giving you some suggestions, try them on for size. Try them on for size. And if it takes listening to this a few times, whenever you feel like you're knocked off, you go to work one day and it worked really good, and then other days you go and you feel like, man, I fell right off. Then listen to this again, get back in alignment with it. Because you don't train yourself to think differently just by reading something one time. You know what I mean? If when you read it, it resonated, when you're listening to me, if it resonates, then go back and listen to it again and again and again. Think about it, apply it, listen to it again. You know what I'm saying? But it's not going to stick just by listening to it one time and then trying to apply it and then kind of forgetting about it, because you've trained yourself into your perspective. You know what I mean? You keep thinking things and they become beliefs, and it's just you're ingrained with the way I'm gonna go. It's just predictive. Like that's not the right word. Predictable. So you go to the same place, you predict the same things because you have the same experiences. And you can't have different experiences if you keep going into it with the same mindset. And I think that you know that already. You know what I mean? So you have to train yourself into a different way of thinking, which requires consistency of thought. So it might be you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but you are going 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're still making progress. You know what I mean? But one thing's for sure, you can't keep thinking of it the same way and expect to feel differently, you see. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. So any other questions you can think of about that?
No, but I think you put a lot of good points on that, and I think it's going to be very, very helpful to a lot of people, including myself, and I feel that way at the job that I have. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks, Sally, and we'll move on to another question, and hopefully we'll help cure the world one question at a time. Hercules. Okay. All right. Thanks, honey. Okay. Bye-bye.